Hello. Okay. Oops. So we just did the Minoan Greeks yesterday or whatever, and we're now moving on to talk about some of the Mycenaean stuff. Um, the Trojan War. True story or only a story? Think about it. We're in 2020. Or if you're watching this like in later years, 2021, 22, whatever, however long I have these. Um, this is like 3,000 years ago. Yeah. So imagine in 3,000 years, yeah, somebody digs up your house and they find all of them, Harry Potter books. Oh my gosh. This is a true story about a young man named Harry. Wow, I'm so glad that somebody wrote about this guy's life because we wouldn't know about him otherwise. Um, are the Harry Potter books true stories? No. No. You're like, yes, miss. Guys, I like them too. I'm with you, okay? But they're not. But do you see how in the future that could be, especially considering everybody and their dog from this time period has the Harry Potter books? Oh my gosh. This isn't about a person. This is their religion way back in 2020. Harry was their god. And their top three gods were Harry, Hermione, and Ron. Whoa. Okay, I've said this before, but is it entirely possible and very plausible that we have some historical things wrong? Yeah, absolutely. Again, I've said this before. People think history is about names, dates, and facts, but it's not. It's names, dates, and theories. Um, there's this guy who told the story of the Trojan War. His name is Homer. Ho ho ho. Okay, you can say every Simpsons joke possible. I've been teaching for 20 years. I've heard them all. Homer, the Greek. This is Homer. He's just this cute little old man. There he is. Homer. Homer would sit around and tell the story of the Trojan War because during this time, he's a Dorian Greek. And during this time, when he's alive, the Dorian Greeks, it's called the Dark Age. I hate that term, by the way. But they aren't writing at this time. Writing will come back, but for whatever reason, it was lost for a while. So they aren't writing. He's not writing these stories down, but we do consider him to be the author of the story of the Trojan War. He told these stories. It's all oral tradition. And like I've mentioned before, you've played the game telephone where you tell a sentence and it goes around a room and it's all changed and messed up and stuff. Guys, he tells his stories about the Trojan War to people. And then Bob, who hears him tell the story, goes home and tells his son the story. But see, Bob's son, he likes monsters. So Bob adds some monsters into the Trojan War story. But Bob's daughter doesn't like monsters. She doesn't want to hear the story. So he adds in a love story. Aww. Is it what Homer actually said? Probably not. these stories changed over time. It's not going to be until a long time. Like, I would venture to say a few hundred years later that his stories get written down. A few hundred years, y'all, they're definitely going to change. Well, the stories that we do attribute to Homer, they're called epic poems. I believe it's one of your vocab words. Epic poems, because they're written in poem form. Did he tell them in poem form? I don't know. Ah, I just got brand new coffee. It's hot. Okay. I don't know if he told them in poem form, but they are written in poem form. And my shirt's all twisted. And they're epic because, I mean, yeah, they're long, but they're epic because they're epics. How do you describe an epic? A long, adventurous type tale. Okay? You can read these today. In fact, you were supposed to have read the Odyssey last year. Mm. The Odyssey. I know, because I hear from you every year, that most of the time y'all just watch the movie. Why? Every movie I've seen of the Odyssey sucks. But you will read these stories for sure. The Iliad, if you continue on in literature or history in college. I don't think you do in high school, but in college you will. And it's fun because they're fun stories, monsters and wars and all kinds of great stuff. You see, the Iliad, it's ILI. I know it looks weird. Iliad. The Iliad is the story of the Trojan War, story of this big war that happens. And then the Odyssey is like what happens afterward. You can you can order these. I'm about to sneeze. Of course I am. Yeah, you can. Oh, and look who it says the author is. Homer. They don't have a picture. Guys, you can order these. You can listen to them. You can 1.99 Kindle. See? But yeah, these are books that you like. I have them both at home. I think they're fun. But just understand what we have written today is probably not what Homer was actually telling way back then. Okay? So what are they? Well, they're just stories about wars. It's a big war. And for a really long time, everybody thought it was just a story. Like Harry Potter, it's just a story. What if 3,000 years into the future, they discover Hogwarts at Disney World? And they're like, oh my gosh, this wasn't a story. It was real. Way back then, the people in 2020, they were magicians. Guys, they would have our history wrong. But do you see how easy it is that we could do that? But you know what was discovered? That it's an archaeological site. It's a city. You're looking at it, you're like, okay. The most obvious thing that's easiest to spot is the amphitheater right here. You want to see some more? Some up close? Some of it up close. This is probably like a kitchen area. These are walls. Whatever happened here at this town, there's the amphitheater up close. Plays would be done down here. Okay. Oh, okay. Plays would be done down here, and then the people would sit up here. So your voice would go up. They didn't have microphones back then. Kind of opposite of how we do it today, where the people sit down and the play is up. It's opposite. The play is down and the people sit up. But they discovered, yeah, they discovered, looking at this archaeological site, there was a war here at some point. Well, they discovered something else pretty weird. Fire. Burned. There is burn damage on some of this stuff. They discovered something else weird. It's a Greek city, Greek style city. Amphitheater is very Greek. It's a Greek style city. Oops, wrong way. Over here. Right about there. What? What city? What? They also found some tax records. They found some writing, some laws and stuff with kings that match up to names in Homer's book, the Iliad. Some of the tax records said things like the name of the city. It's not called Troy. That's in our language. Ilia. It's it's why the book is called the Iliad. It's based on what they called it. No, no. I can't remember. Should I do the song of Ilium or Iliad? It's what the Greeks used to call the city of Troy, because they didn't call it Troy. That's like what we call it. I just can't remember what they called it. It doesn't really matter. I just, when I can't remember something, I'm like, I'm like, I gotta know. It doesn't matter. But anyway, it's based on what? It's like the story of this city, this war. Ilion. Oh my gosh, it's right here. Ilion is the ancient name for the city of Troy. First thing, and I'm all looking down here and finding Ilium and stuff. And I was like, no, Ilion. There we go. Anyway, how did we get to this? Oh, yeah. Anyway, they start seeing the name on some of the documents. And they're like, oh my gosh, we need to look at that book again. So, what the heck happened at the Trojan War? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Because Homer's story says it all started when the queen of Sparta, named Helen, was kidnapped by the Trojan princes. Well, I don't know. I don't think I included pictures. It gets It's really complicated. I'll try to not go into detail. No detail. But you know, I want to tell you, right? Okay. The Prince of Troy, there are two of them. We have Hector, who is more like military. He's a warrior. Yeah, I like Hector. But he's a warrior. And then we have Paris, the lover, the dreamer, the poet. Well, they go to Sparta for some diplomatic mission. They go to Sparta for their father. Their father, I can't remember his name, but he was old and like, I don't remember if he was sick. I haven't read the book since college, but he was sick or whatever. And so he sent his sons, right? Sparta and Hector. Just kidding. Paris and Hector. They get here, okay? And the story basically is the king. He has a wife who doesn't really like him. Her name is Helen, and supposedly she's the most beautiful woman the world has ever created. There are gods and goddesses involved too in the story. There was a bet, and somebody lost, and so the goddess of love is involved, and it gets complicated, okay? But I'm trying to not go into detail. So Helen falls in love with Paris. Paris falls in love with Helen. Okay, y'all know I am so not romantic, and I'm like, what? I just want the war part, right? But that's the story. They fall in love, and so they take Helen back to Troy. Well, the king of Sparta is like, oh, heck no! They stole my wife. Well, no, they didn't, but I definitely get how it looks that way. So he gets a whole coalition, a whole group of different city states to come together and go to fight Troy. Why? To get his wife back. Because, people from other city states really want to send their men to die for your wife. I think there might be an underlying reason that this war is occurring that really has nothing to do with Helen. Troy is a Greek trade town over here. Troy was kind of the gateway for Mesopotamian goods to get into Greece. Yes, you see other cities, I know, but Troy's kind of the gateway for Mesopotamia goods to be traded to Greece. Troy knew that. Troy jacks up taxes of goods. You have to pay a lot if you want goods coming from over this way, from the Royal Road, Mesopotamia. Okay? Troy's jacking up taxes. It's called business. The Greeks on the mainland get pretty ticked off, though. Again, I get it. I understand that. This is a trade war, guys. This is a trade war. Historically speaking. I mean, the story that Homer writes doesn't talk about that. It talks about Helen and the love and blah, 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 yeah? But historically speaking, this is a trade war. We're fighting over trade. We're fighting over taxes. We're fighting over profits. That's basically it. The Greeks are not willing to go die for some guy's wife that ran away. They are willing to die for economic reasons. Well, Homer says that after, I don't remember how long, 10 years or 7 years or something of war, maybe it's longer than that. Did I put it in your notes? I can't remember. 8 years. That's pretty close. Homer says that after a long time, people have died. Hector died. Oh, my Hector. A bunch of people have died, right? The king of Troy's dead at some point. All these people are dead. All these people are dead. But Troy's still fighting. The Greeks fake him out. The Greeks pretend to surrender and leave. They pretend to sail away on their ships. Bye-bye, Troy. Here's a gift. Okay, the Trojan horse gift makes absolutely no sense to people unless you understand its purpose. Homer says that the Greeks left the Trojans that. Okay, listen, we don't have the Trojan horse. Anytime you see this kind of thing, it's been remade based on what Homer kind of said it looked like. Okay, it's wood, wood decays. This was 3,000 years ago. So, okay, but they build this giant horse and they give it to the Trojans, and that makes no sense at all. None. Except you're going to hear me say this over and over and over again, all the way until we get to the Cold War. Well, just kidding. World War II or whatever. When you lose a war, you give the winner something. A peace gift, in this case, or reparations, money, or you give them land, or you give them your daughter, or whatever. The loser of a war gives the winner something. Okay? That always happens. Okay, so the Greeks give him a giant horse. Well, that's stupid. Until you understand the horse. It's kind of like a mascot, like a bulldog. Remember what school I went to? I mean, I can't control where my parents lived when I was a kid. See, I went to Lee. I went to that other school. So when I was a teenager, if somebody gave me a bulldog thing, I'd be like, okay. It doesn't mean anything to me. I guess I shouldn't say that. It does now because I've taught at this school for 20 years. But when I was in high school, when I was y'all's age, it didn't mean anything to me to see a bulldog thing. I didn't do like y'all and feel that pride inside and go, oh, it's my school. I didn't do that because that wasn't my mascot. But how do you feel when you see bulldog stuff? You're like, that's my school. And you proudly wear that bulldog everywhere. You're wearing a dog on your clothes. What? That's weird. But it's not weird, is it? It's not weird because it's your mascot. The symbol for Troy was a horse. So when you don't understand that, you're like, okay, they built a horse. So if they built you a horse, you'd be like, oh, thanks. But what if they built us a giant bulldog? We'd be like, that's awesome. That's cool. Because it means something to you. It's the symbol of your city state, or in our case, our school. Well, it's also giant. In this picture here, you can see a person coming out of this thing. It's huge. Who needs a giant wooden horse? Well, there's also a purpose for it. Again, when you just read it and you're like, okay, they made him a giant horse. It's stupid. But it makes sense. Because, oh, I can't change the picture. Ugh. Okay, look where Troy is. Hittite land. It's over here. The Hittites are right here. They're all in this area. And the Hittites were very warlike. The idea of the Trojan horse was this. Put it on this side of your city, outside the city gates. It's a lookout tower. That was its purpose. It has these windows. Now, Homer actually describes it a little different from this, but that's okay. But it has these windows, And so you could be like the warriors could be in something that's covered and not be experiencing the harsh, I don't know, whatever kind of weather they have there, but they can still look out. It's for protection. It's a lookout. When you think about that and when you understand that, that's a pretty impressive gift. Not only did they give them a lookout tower, they made it into their mascot. That's cool. We don't know, historically speaking, if the Trojan horse was real or if it was just part of Homer's story. We don't know. Um, what Homer says in the story is that the Trojans were like so excited and they thought it was so cool that they wheeled it into their city. I personally have issue with that. The purpose is lookout. So why do you wheel it into the city? I don't know. Maybe just for celebration, which they have. I don't know. But the story is that they wheel the horse into the city and then they start their big like woohoo, we won celebration, right? But secretly, in a secret compartment somewhere, I don't know, in the head or something, or in the tail, wherever, there are Greeks who are hiding in here. It has to be a secret compartment because there's no way the Trojans would have wheeled this into the city without having looked inside first. So, if there's any truth to this, a big if, it had to be a secret compartment. Regardless, that's what the story says, that there were some Greeks hanging out in here hiding, and the Trojans wheel it into the city, and then they start their big celebration, and they start getting drunk and stuff. Yeah? Okay. I'm sorry, I got a school email, so I was looking at it. Okay. Um, Once everybody like starts passing out and it gets really late, everybody's falling asleep. The Greeks who are in here secretly drop out, and then they go to the gates of Troy and they open them from the inside. All those ships that pretended, I don't know why I did that. They did pretend. All those ships that pretended to surrender, they had come back and they flood the city and they start killing people. More people die, a whole bunch more people. Some of the big warriors, Achilles, okay, who cares? But eventually the city gets like fire and all kinds of craziness, and whew, the Trojans lose. Bye, Troy. Historically speaking, we believe that there was a war. We believe that there was a trade war because there actually is some like letters back and forth. Okay, I'm having issues. Okay. Some writing, some correspondence. That's what I'm looking for. Because I don't know if they're like scroll letters or if they are carved into tablets. I don't know. But there's some correspondence back and forth between Troy and Sparta, where Sparta is saying, lower your taxes or else. And Troy's like, or else what? So we are pretty sure that there was a war, it was a trade war, and the Greeks over here destroyed the Trojans, who are also Greeks, but that's okay. Okay? All that love story drama, it's kind of like the movie Titanic. I only like the second half. Who cares about Jack and what's her name? I just want to see the ship sink. Same idea here. You have this whole like love story thing with Helen and Paris, and oh my gosh, she's the most beautiful woman in the world, and she ran away, and blah blah blah. The interesting thing is, though, we don't even know if that's what Homer said. Maybe Homer just told this story straight the way it was. But because of humans, like, just naturally exaggerating pieces, or like I mentioned, like your daughter wants to hear a love story, not a war, so you're going to add in what your daughter wants to hear. I think that's really cool to look at, like how things change like that over time. It's cool. So we have a Dorian, a later Greek, writing about something that happened with the Messenian Greeks. And now we're getting into the meat of it. The polis and philosophy is next.